All right, let's just dive right into one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions you can possibly ask. What is actually happening when we sleep? We're about to explore a pretty radical idea, one that's backed by some serious theoretical physics. It suggests that our dreams, well, they aren't just random static from our brains. They might just be windows into other worlds, maybe even other lives. I mean, really think about that. A full third of your entire existence is spent in a place that we're all conditioned to just dismiss the second we open our eyes. But what if that's a huge mistake? What if the reality you experience in your dreams is just as legitimate as the one you're experiencing right now listening to me? And this really gets to the heart of it, summed up perfectly by biologist Robert Lanza. The fundamental process, the biological machinery your mind is using to build a world around you, it's the same whether your eyes are open or closed. So if the process is identical, why on earth do we treat one outcome as reality and the other as pure fantasy? To even begin to answer that, we have to pull on a different thread first. We have to ask ourselves what we even mean by the word real. And that question leads us to a fascinating theory that basically flips our entire understanding of the universe on its head. It's a theory called biocentrism, and the core idea is this: the universe doesn't create life. Life and consciousness create the universe. In this model, space and time aren't these concrete external things out there. Nope. They're more like the operating system, the software our consciousness uses to organize raw data into an experience that makes sense. So, and this is the crucial part, if space and time are just tools of the mind, then your mind is using those exact same tools whether you're awake or asleep. The act of creating a three-dimensional world filled with people and places and feelings, it's happening through the same biological logic in both states. No difference in the machinery. Now, what's so wild about this is how it completely shatters our assumptions. We tend to think of waking reality as being out there, totally objective, right? And dreams are in here, totally subjective. But from this biocentric point of view, both are just a storm of information being processed inside your head. In both waking and dreaming, your consciousness is doing the same incredible job, taking pure waves of probability and collapsing them into what you perceive as a physical experience. Okay, so if our consciousness is the architect of reality, where does it come from? Well, the answer might not be found in biology class, but in the incredibly strange world of quantum physics. So let's talk about the Orch OR theory. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know, but the idea itself is a total game changer. It basically says that consciousness isn't just a side effect of a bunch of neurons firing off. No, it suggests that consciousness actually comes from quantum-level computations happening inside the literal skeleton of our neurons, in these super tiny structures called microtubules. Let's just walk through this. So first, you have superposition. Inside these tiny tubes, proteins exist in a haze of multiple possibilities at once. Then comes the orchestration. Your brain's regular electrical activity starts to organize this quantum chaos. And finally, objective reduction. The quantum state collapses all on its own, not because someone is looking at it, but because it hits a specific physical threshold. And poof, that collapse, that very event, is a single distinct moment of your conscious experience. Just let that sink in for a second. If Orch OR is right, your consciousness isn't just some ghost in the machine. It's not just happening in your head. It's a series of actual events that are woven into the fundamental fabric of space-time. Every single moment of your awareness is a literal ripple in the cosmos. So let's just quickly put these two big ideas side by side. Orch OR is really focused on the mechanism, the how it all works, saying consciousness is a quantum event in your brain. Biocentrism, on the other hand, focuses on primacy, the what it is, arguing that consciousness is the foundation that creates reality in the first place. They're looking at the same incredible mystery, just from two different and maybe even complementary angles. Okay, so let's bring all this quantum weirdness back to sleep. If our consciousness is this fundamental quantum thing, then what in the world is happening when we go to bed at night? Is our brain just, tidying up? Or could it be something more, like a transition to somewhere else entirely? The standard, conventional view is what's called the continuity hypothesis. It basically sees dreaming as the brain doing mental housekeeping. It's all happening inside your skull. But this newer, quantum perspective suggests consciousness isn't even stuck in the brain. From this view, sleep isn't about cleaning house. It's for something called resonance calibration. Think of it like you're retuning an old radio dial. shifting the frequency just enough to pick up a totally different station. Sleep is the process of retuning your consciousness. And this idea of retuning gets exponentially crazier when you throw the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics into the mix. Remember those quantum collapses from the Orch OR theory? The little poofs that create a moment of consciousness? Well, this heavily debated but peer-reviewed theory says that every single time one of those events happens, the universe itself splits. Every possible outcome plays out in its own separate, parallel universe. This means that right now, there are an infinite number of yous out there living out every single choice you ever could have made, and every one of them is just as real as you are. The theory goes that your stream of consciousness splits right along with the universe. And now, here's the absolute kicker. Dreams might be the moments when our consciousness is able to temporarily tap into the experiences of those other selves in those other worlds. And this brings us right back to that resonance calibration idea. It's the how. It's the mechanism for tuning that cosmic radio. This theory proposes that sleep is the process that actually allows this shift to happen. By shutting down all the sensory input from this reality, the sounds, the sights, our consciousness is set free to align with, or tune into, the frequency of another reality, another version of you. So, where does all this leave us? I mean, we've gone from the simple act of dreaming all the way to the quantum fabric of the cosmos. Let's try to put all these staggering pieces together and really look at what this all implies. Now, before we go any further, it is absolutely crucial that we separate what's what here, okay? It is an established scientific fact that microtubules exist and that warm quantum effects have been observed inside them. That's real. The Orch OR theory and the many worlds interpretation, those are rigorous, peer-reviewed theories in physics. They're not proven, but they are serious science. The ideas of biocentrism and our dreams being actual portals, for now, that's compelling philosophical speculation that's built on top of those theories. But the most profound implication of all this, it has to do with the one thing we all think about. If consciousness truly is a non-local quantum phenomenon, then it can't be extinguished. It can't be destroyed. Death isn't an end. It's simply a break, a departure from one linear timeline, as your awareness continues to exist across the infinite landscape of all possible realities. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? That feeling you have of being me, your core sense of self, is a form of energy. And as we all learned in science class, the first law of thermodynamics is pretty clear. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So we have to end with this question. If biocentrism, or something like it, is right, if the observer really does create reality simply by the act of observing it, then the power to shape the universe is, in some very fundamental way, in your hands. It totally reframes our existence, doesn't it? We're not just passive passengers along for the ride. We're active creators. So, what reality will you choose?